Listen carefully. This is not a message you stumbled upon by accident, and this is not a season of abandonment, even though it feels that way. What you are experiencing right now is not rejection, not delay, not punishment, but preparation. At this moment, there are people watching your life who will never speak to you, never comment, and never reveal themselves, yet they are studying you quietly with intense focus. These are not random observers. These are people with influence, people with authority, people with access, and people whose status you do not yet recognize, but whose decisions will eventually intersect with your future. The reason you feel isolated, the reason conversations feel shallow and unsatisfying, and the reason your circle keeps shrinking instead of expanding is because your life has entered a protected phase. This is the stage where heaven reduces noise so destiny can move without interference. When something valuable is being refined, access becomes limited by design. Most people think loneliness means something is wrong with them, but in spiritual truth, loneliness often means access has been revoked. It means certain energies, distractions, and manipulators no longer have permission to reach you. That's why invitations stopped. That's why familiar voices faded. That's why relationships dissolved without arguments or explanations. Before we go any further, pause the video for 1 second and type "I am chosen" in the comments, not for validation, not for attention, but as a declaration of awareness. Then like this video and subscribe, because what you're about to hear will begin to confirm things you've already felt deep in your spirit, but couldn't explain. There is a reason your phone stays quiet. There is a reason old connections disappeared without closure. There is a reason you feel watched but untouched, observed but not approached. When something carries rare potential, it is observed before it is engaged. What you are sensing is not paranoia, it is perception sharpening. This is the phase where heaven places you under quiet surveillance, not to judge you, but to position you. Your restraint is being measured, your consistency is being noted, your reaction to silence is being evaluated. Many opportunities are lost, not because people aren't talented, but because they couldn't handle isolation without self-destructing. This season is testing whether you can remain grounded without applause, disciplined without supervision, and faithful without recognition. You are being trained to move without external validation, to stand firm without reinforcement, and to trust what you cannot yet see. That is why the noise had to go. That is why access was restricted. That is why you were separated. This is not where people leave you behind. This is where you outgrow the room before the door opens. Stay still. Stay disciplined. Stay clean in thought and intention. What is meant to find you already knows where you are. And when the moment comes, the silence will make sense. Now, let's dive deeper. Point 1. The loneliness you feel is not emotional absence, it is strategic isolation. What you are experiencing right now must be reframed correctly, because if you misinterpret this season, you will fight the very thing protecting you. The loneliness you feel is not evidence of failure, rejection, or personal deficiency. It is not proof that you are unlovable or disconnected from life. It is evidence that something precise and intelligent is taking place beneath the surface of your awareness. Your nervous system is being rewired, your intuition is being sharpened, and your identity is being recalibrated away from emotional dependency and toward inner sovereignty. When destiny activates at a higher level, access is restricted by design. Not everyone can accompany you into a phase where clarity replaces comfort. The mind seeks company, because it is accustomed to external regulation. But the soul requires quiet in order to stabilize its signal. You are being removed from noise not to punish you, but to prevent contamination while your inner structure reorganizes itself. This phase appears empty on the surface, yet it is densely populated with unseen adjustment, integration, and reinforcement. Silence is doing work that distraction could never accomplish. The reason conversations feel draining now is because your internal reference point has shifted. You are no longer designed to borrow energy, identity, or validation from others in order to feel real. You are being trained to remain grounded without reflection, stable without mirroring, and whole without constant feedback. That is why this loneliness feels unfamiliar, heavier, and more silent than anything you have known before. It does not carry the chaos of abandonment. It carries the weight of self-possession. You are not missing people in the way you think. You are shedding emotional scaffolding that once supported a version of you that can no longer sustain what you're becoming. Old attachments were useful when you were building, but they would collapse under the pressure of expansion. High-level paths require emotional self-containment before external growth can occur. You're learning how to hold yourself without leaking energy, how to be present without performing, and how to exist without explanation. This is not isolation meant to shrink you. It is consolidation meant to strengthen you. When this phase completes, connection will return, but it will arrive differently. It will be cleaner, quieter, and aligned with who you are now, not who you had to be to survive. Until then, the stillness is not your enemy. It is your training ground. Point 2. High-status individuals do not approach early. They observe patterns in silence. There is a misunderstanding about visibility that must be corrected, because most people assume recognition is loud, dramatic, and immediate, when in reality, true recognition is almost always quiet, delayed, and strategic. Those who operate with real influence do not announce interest prematurely, because premature involvement exposes intention, and intention invites interference. Power does not rush forward. It leans back and observes. Right now, you are not unseen. You are in an observation phase, and not by strangers or casual onlookers, but by individuals who understand timing, leverage, and psychological readiness. They are not watching your words because words can be rehearsed. They are watching your regulation. They are watching how you move when nothing is happening, and how you hold yourself when there is no applause, no validation, and no reassurance. They are watching whether you collapse inward through resentment, entitlement, or frustration, or whether you mature outward into patience, steadiness, and self-command. Silence is not neglect. Silence is surveillance. Stillness is data. What feels like abandonment is actually assessment. You are being evaluated not for talent, charisma, or potential, but for consistency under emotional neutrality. Can you remain composed when outcomes are uncertain? Can you stay disciplined when no one is watching? Can you sustain direction without external reinforcement? This is why no one reaches out yet. Support given too early weakens internal authority. Intervention too soon creates dependency. Validation before self-trust fractures the spine of leadership. You are being allowed, intentionally, to become self-sourced. This phase strips away the need to be chosen, noticed, or rescued. It forces you to generate stability internally, rather than borrowing it from approval. Those who understand influence do not invest in people who need permission to stand upright. They invest in individuals who remain grounded even when the room is empty. Your silence is not a verdict on your worth. It is a test of your foundation. The watching is quiet because the stakes are real. When attention finally arrives, it will not ask who you are. It will already know. Point 3. Divine protection often feels like social removal before expansion. Protection is rarely comfortable, and that is by design. If protection felt pleasant, you would mistake it for reward, for ease, for arrival. But true protection feels like stillness that stretches longer than expected, like doors that do not open when you knock, like messages that go unanswered while your awareness sharpens in silence. It feels like being unseen externally while something inside you becomes unmistakably solid. This is not abandonment. It is refinement. The divine pattern has never changed across history, psychology, or spiritual law. Isolation always precedes authority. Before influence expands outward, identity must become internally unshakable. Before you are trusted with visibility, you are tested with invisibility. What feels like loneliness is actually containment. What feels like stagnation is structural reinforcement. You are being protected from alliances that would dilute your momentum, from conversations that would scatter your focus, and from relationships that would demand access to parts of you that are still under construction. Not every connection is a blessing. Some are delays disguised as companionship. Not every opportunity is alignment. Some are distractions designed to slow your trajectory. You're being protected from emotional entanglements that would fragment your attention and pull you back into old versions of yourself. Attention is power, and power must be conserved before it is deployed. You are also being protected from being seen too soon. Premature exposure damages credibility. When something is revealed before it is fully formed, it becomes vulnerable to misinterpretation, interference, and erosion. This is why your progress feels hidden. This is why your growth feels quiet. This is why others seem to move ahead while you remain still. Stillness is not stagnation, it is calibration. Delay is not denial. Delay is insulation. It is the buffering period that prevents distortion. It is the space where clarity replaces impulse and discernment replaces urgency. You are being positioned beyond reaction, beyond dependency, and beyond the need for external validation. When the moment arrives for movement, it will not require announcement or force. It will be unmistakable, grounded, and irreversible. Until then, the silence is doing its work. The absence is not a punishment. It is a filter. The waiting is not a setback. It is preparation. And when you finally step forward, you will not be rushing to prove anything, because what you carry will already be established within you, immune to doubt, immune to collapse, and ready to stand. Point 4. The sensation of being watched without evidence is heightened awareness, not anxiety. There is a subtle experience many chosen individuals encounter at this stage, and it often arrives without announcement or explanation. A quiet shift, a heightened stillness, a sense of being observed without visible observers. This is not paranoia, and it is not fear. This is perception refining itself. When your internal clarity increases, your awareness naturally expands beyond surface-level signals. You begin to register intention before interaction, emotional undercurrents before words are spoken, and direction before movement occurs. You feel attention before conversation ever begins. This is not mystical fantasy. It is the nervous system recalibrating for leadership-level perception, the kind required when your presence begins to influence outcomes simply by existing. Anxiety feels scattered, loud, and reactive. Awareness feels calm, focused, and immovable. If what you feel is quiet but intense and steady rather than chaotic, it is awareness sharpening itself, not imagination spiraling. You are not imagining pressure. You are detecting momentum. Momentum has weight, and weight creates gravity. Your life is entering a phase where even unseen actions generate consequences, where private decisions echo forward into future outcomes. This is why your choices suddenly feel heavier than before. You are no longer operating only for immediate results. You are becoming accountable to a larger timeline, one that stretches beyond short-term validation or survival-based reactions. This awareness often arrives with solitude, because noise interferes with precision. It arrives with restraint, because impulsivity cannot coexist with expanded perception. You may notice that you observe more and react less, that silence feels safer than explanation, and that your intuition speaks before logic has time to argue. This is not withdrawal, it is calibration. You are learning to carry influence without broadcasting it, to hold direction without forcing motion. At this stage, life begins to respond to alignment rather than effort. You are being trained to recognize when something is forming before it becomes visible, when a door is opening before it is labeled as such. This is why distractions lose their appeal and superficial interactions feel draining. Your system knows that clarity is now more valuable than comfort. What you are experiencing is the early responsibility of someone whose decisions will matter more than they once did. The weight you feel is not a burden. It is the signal that your presence is beginning to count in ways that cannot yet be explained, only felt. Point 5. The emptying of your circle is a filter, not a failure. Every expansion requires subtraction because growth is not the act of adding more noise, more people, or more validation, but the quiet refinement of what is no longer aligned. The people who no longer resonate with you are not wrong, and neither are you. Paths diverge when internal frequencies change. This is not punishment, betrayal, or failure. It is calibration. Alignment shifts do not require blame because blame anchors you to the past. They require acceptance because acceptance frees energy to move forward without residue. You are not meant to explain this phase to anyone because explanation invites negotiation, and negotiation invites compromise. Compromise, in this season, would dilute the clarity that is forming inside you. Silence is not avoidance here. It is protection. This season teaches discernment through absence, not through confrontation, not through dramatic endings, but through the quiet noticing of who disappears when you stop performing. You are learning who you are when no one affirms you, when no one mirrors your growth back to you, and when applause is replaced by stillness. In that stillness, your nervous system is rewiring itself. You are learning how to self-regulate without emotional borrowing, without outsourcing your worth to reactions, replies, or recognition. This is where maturity is forged, where you stop needing others to confirm that you are on the right path and begin trusting the internal signal that guides you forward. You are learning how to trust your own timing, even when it looks slow to others, even when it feels lonely, even when comparison tries to whisper that you are falling behind. You are not behind. You are incubating. The solitude you are experiencing is not emptiness, it is compression, a narrowing of focus so your energy stops leaking into misaligned spaces. When this phase completes, your connections will be fewer but weighted, your conversations fewer but with deeper resonance, and your names in your phone fewer, but your nervous system safety stronger. You will not have many people around you, but every presence will feel intentional, grounded, and reciprocal. There will be no need to chase, explain, or prove. The people who enter your life next will not require translation, because they will recognize your frequency without instruction. This is not isolation, it is preparation. This is not loss, it is precision. And when you look back, you will realize that what felt like being left behind was actually life clearing the path so you could walk it unencumbered, whole, and self-led. Point 6. Recognition arrives only after internal authority is established. External elevation without internal authority always collapses under pressure, which is why nothing is rushing toward you yet. This delay is not denial, it is stabilization. Your system is being quietly recalibrated beneath the surface. Emotional spikes that once pulled you outward are slowing. Reactions that used to fire instantly are becoming measured, intentional, and grounded. Your identity is no longer shaped by urgency or approval, but by rooted awareness. This is the phase where impulse dissolves and discernment takes its place. As internal authority stabilizes, recognition stops being something you chase and becomes something that finds you. You will not need to explain yourself or persuade anyone of your worth. Your presence alone will communicate alignment, clarity, and readiness. This is where invitations appear without effort, doors open without applications, and conversations begin as if they were already in motion. You are not behind schedule. You are not overlooked. You are being calibrated to arrive whole, steady, and unmistakably prepared for what can only meet you at this level. Point 7. This phase ends quietly, and the shift will be sudden. The most important thing to understand is this. This season does not end with an announcement. It ends with movement. One day, the silence lifts without warning. Momentum resumes without explanation. People reference you before you meet them. Opportunities appear without build-up, and you will realize that this quiet phase was not emptiness. It was incubation. Stay still. Stay clean in intention. Stay disciplined in routine. Do not contaminate this phase with bitterness. When visibility returns, it will be irreversible, and you will understand why access had to be restricted. If this resonates, type, "I am chosen," in the comments, not for validation but for alignment. Like the video, subscribe, and remain grounded. What is watching you is not a threat. It is timing.